They found her bleeding in the woods, a stranger with ghost-white hair and eyes that shimmered like frost. No one knew her name, or why she risked her life to save a dying wolf cub. But when the Alpha King arrived, he realized the truth. That cub was his son. And the woman dying before him was his fated mate. This is the story of the healer who saved a kingdom, and the love that defied death itself. Before we dive in, tell me, where are you watching from right now? I love seeing where everyone's tuning in from. The forest was too quiet. Lyria had learned long ago that silence meant danger. Birds always warned of predators, and when even the crickets hid, something hunted nearby. Still, she kept walking. Her boots were worn thin, her cloak frayed, and her stomach ached with hunger. She had been traveling for 3 weeks, moving from one wolf pack's border to another, offering her healing gift for scraps of food and a place to sleep. Her white hair hung limp around her face, catching what little moonlight slipped through the trees. She looked almost like a ghost drifting between the trunks, pale skin glowing faintly, grey eyes tired but alert. Most packs avoided her. Some whispered she was cursed, others called her a bad omen. Lyria didn't argue. If being alone kept her alive, then loneliness was a small price. She adjusted the strap of her satchel, hearing the soft clink of glass bottles inside. Herbs, bandages, salves, her only treasures. Just one more day, she muttered to herself. One more day and maybe I'll find shelter. The wind shifted. A faint, broken sound reached her ears, a whimper, high and desperate. She froze, heart pounding. It sounded like a pup. Or a wolf cub. Don't, she whispered, as if scolding her own curiosity. You know better. But the cry came again, weaker this time, and her healer's instincts roared louder than her fear. Lyria sighed and pushed through a wall of underbrush. If this gets me killed, she said under her breath, I'll haunt the forest myself. Branches scratched her arms as she followed the sound. Her gift stirred inside her, a gentle pulse behind her ribs. She could feel the pain nearby, a sharp, twisting agony, raw and young. Someone small was dying. When she stepped into a clearing, she froze. 3 rogue wolves circled a tiny white cub, its fur soaked with blood. The cub tried to crawl away, dragging a twisted hind leg, but one of the rogues pounced and shoved it back into the dirt. They weren't hunting, they were playing with it. Torturing it. Rage replaced fear in Lyria's chest. Hey, she shouted before she could think. Her voice echoed through the trees. Leave it alone. 3 heads snapped toward her. The largest rogue shifted into human form, a scar crossing his cheek. His eyes gleamed with cruel amusement. Well, look what wandered in. An Omega healer. He sniffed the air. And a pretty one too, though you look half dead already. Lyria's pulse raced, but she forced her voice to stay calm. Walk away. I'll pretend I never saw you. The second rogue laughed. She's brave, I'll give her that. The third one sneered, why don't we have a little fun first? She tightened her grip on her satchel. Last warning. The leader's grin widened. Or what, ghost girl? You'll heal us to death. He lunged. Lyria jumped back, pulling the small silver knife from her belt, the only weapon she owned. Her father had given it to her years ago, before rogues slaughtered her family. She whispered, forgive me, father, and met the attack. The fight was fast, messy, and filled with pain. The first rogue slashed at her with claws still half-formed. She ducked and drove the knife upward. The blade cut deep across his throat. Hot blood sprayed her hands as he fell, gurgling. The second rogue grabbed her from behind, claws digging into her ribs. She screamed, twisting, and slammed her elbow into his nose. He howled, loosening his grip. Lyria turned and stabbed him beneath the chin. The blade sank up to the hilt. His eyes went blank. The third one hesitated only a moment before shifting fully into wolf form, a grey brute with yellow eyes. He lunged. Lyria tried to dodge, but exhaustion slowed her. Teeth clamped onto her shoulder. Pain exploded down her arm. He shook her like a rag doll and threw her against a tree. Her back hit bark hard enough to knock the breath from her lungs. The knife slipped from her hand. Through blurry vision, she saw the wolf turn toward the cub again. No, she gasped, pushing herself upright. No, you don't. Her healing sense screamed through her body, listing injuries as if reciting a cruel report: broken ribs, punctured lung, torn shoulder, internal bleeding. She knew she was dying. Minutes left, maybe less. But the cub whimpered again, and she couldn't let it end like this. With trembling fingers, Lyria pressed her palm to the earth and drew on every spark of magic inside her. Healing energy gathered, wild and bright. She had always used it to close wounds, but she remembered something her mother once said: "All life is energy, Lyria. To heal is to share it. To destroy is to take it away." So she took. The wolf's snarl turned into a strangled yelp. His fur grayed, his body shriveled, and within seconds he collapsed, lifeless. The energy she stole burned through her veins like fire. She staggered, choking on pain. "So that's what happens," she whispered, a bitter smile forming. "Good to know." The clearing was silent again, except for the cub's faint whine. Lyria crawled toward it, leaving a trail of blood behind her. The little wolf's blue eyes watched her warily, but it didn't move away when she reached out and stroked its head. Its fur was soft beneath the dried blood. "Hey there, little one," she whispered. "You're safe now." The cub licked her hand weakly. It was badly hurt, broken leg, deep gashes, blood loss. Without help, it wouldn't survive the night. Lyria's breath hitched. "I can save you," she told it softly. "But it'll cost me everything." The cub whined again, as if it understood. She smiled faintly. "That's a yes, then." She placed both hands over the cub's body and reached deep, past her usual limits, past safety, into the burning core of her life force. She felt her energy flow out of her and into the small creature, repairing torn muscle, knitting bone, closing wounds. Every heartbeat made her weaker, every breath shallower. When it was done, the cub stood shakily, fully healed. Lyria collapsed beside it, vision dimming. "Good," she whispered. "You're going to live." The cub pressed its tiny head against her cheek, whimpering. "Don't cry, little one. Someone will find you. Someone important." Her hand fell limp. Her last thought was peaceful. Better this than dying alone. Then everything went dark. The moon was high when Alpha King Rylan felt his son's cry. He was leading a hunting patrol through the northern ridge when the sound pierced his mind, a howl filled with terror. His wolf surged forward inside him, howling in answer. "Kale." "Your Majesty?" Captain Joran asked, startled. Rylan's eyes blazed bright gold. "They have my son. Move." The royal guards shifted into their wolf forms, sprinting through the forest like white streaks of moonlight. Rylan ran ahead, faster than all of them, following the faint bond that tied him to his cub. He could smell blood, his son's blood, and the stench of rogues. When he broke into the clearing, the sight stopped him cold. 3 dead rogues lay in the dirt. His tiny son stood beside a woman collapsed in a pool of blood. Her hair shimmered white, her skin ghost pale. Rylan shifted back to human before he even reached them. "Kale." The cub turned, limped once, then bounded toward him with a joyful yelp. He was alive, unharmed. Rylan dropped to his knees and gathered him up, clutching him to his chest. "Papa," the boy whimpered, licking his father's chin. "Hurt lady, lady sleep." Rylan looked down at the woman. She wasn't dead yet. Her chest rose weakly. A faint shimmer glowed around her hands where they rested on the ground. The air still buzzed with leftover power, ancient and strange. His wolf stirred, senses locking onto her. "Mate." The word struck him like lightning. His heart stuttered. He, the Alpha King of the Northern Territories, had found his true mate and she was dying in front of him. "Get the healers," he roared. "Now." 2 guards sprinted away. Rylan lifted the woman gently, careful not to worsen her wounds. She was light, frighteningly so, her breath shallow. "Stay with me," he murmured. "Don't you dare leave." Her eyelids fluttered. "The cub." "He's safe," Rylan said quickly. "You saved him. He's my son." She tried to smile. "Then, worth it." "No," Rylan snapped. "You don't get to decide that." But her eyes rolled back, and she went still. "Father, she sleep?" Kale asked, tugging on his sleeve. "She's resting," Rylan said, though fear gripped his throat. The healers will fix her. Minutes later, the healers arrived, kneeling beside them. The oldest, Elder Mara, pressed her glowing hands over the woman's chest. Your Majesty, she's nearly gone. We can stabilize her, but... Then do it, he said through clenched teeth. Whatever it takes. They worked in silence, their magic weaving through the night air. The smell of herbs and iron filled the clearing. Rylan held Kale close, watching the color slowly return to the woman's cheeks. After a long moment, Mara looked up. She'll live. Barely. Rylan exhaled, shoulders sagging with relief. Prepare a stretcher. We're taking her home. The journey back to the palace took 2 days. They moved carefully, stopping often so the healers could reinforce their work. Lyria, he'd learned her name from a letter found in her pack, never woke. Rylan hardly slept. He stayed beside her wagon each night, watching her breathe. Kale refused to leave her side, curling up against her arm like a pup guarding its mother. On the second night, Rylan asked softly, why did she risk it? She didn't even know you. Mara answered without looking up from her patient. Because she's a healer, my king. Some of us can't walk away from pain, even when it kills us. Rylan stared at Lyria's still face, anger and/or twisting inside him. Then she's either a fool or a saint. Maybe both, Mara said. And something more. I've never seen power like hers. She drained those rogues of life itself. That kind of magic hasn't existed for centuries. Rylan frowned. You mean soul weaver magic? Mara nodded. It was forbidden for a reason. To give life, you must take it from somewhere. Most who try die in the process. He looked at Lyria again. Then she broke the rules of death itself. He brushed a lock of hair from her forehead. Hold on, little ghost. The world still owes you. When they reached the palace gates, the guards bowed low, astonished by the sight of the unconscious stranger carried beside their king. Rylan's orders were clear, she is under my protection. Anyone who harms or mocks her answers to me. In the royal infirmary, they laid her on a soft bed. The healers continued their work late into the night, chanting softly. Kale sat in a chair beside her, clutching her hand. Papa, he said sleepily, she smells like flowers. Like Mama used to. Rylan's throat tightened. His mate, the late Queen Alara, had died giving birth to Kale 2 years earlier. Since then, the boy had spoken little, retreating into silence. Now he was talking again, because of this woman. She saved you, Rylan said gently. So be kind to her when she wakes. Kale nodded solemnly and leaned his head against her arm. Okay, Papa. I'll be nice. Rylan sat beside them, exhaustion settling in his bones, yet he couldn't look away from Lyria. Even broken and bloodstained, she seemed ethereal, light spilling from her skin like moonshine. He had faced wars, monsters, and betrayal, but nothing frightened him more than the idea of losing her before she even knew who he was. He reached out, letting his fingers brush hers. A faint warmth pulsed through the bond. His wolf stirred, whispering again, mate. Rylan whispered back, then I'll keep her safe, whatever it takes. Outside, the moon rose high above the palace towers, casting silver light over the sleeping healer, the boy she'd saved, and the king whose fate had just changed forever. Lyria floated in darkness for what felt like years. She could hear faint echoes, the flap of wings, the whisper of water, a child's voice calling softly, wake up, lady. Then pain dragged her back. Her lungs burned, her body felt too heavy to move. She tried to open her eyes, but the light stabbed at her skull. Everything smelled like herbs and clean linen. She's stirring, someone whispered. A deeper voice followed, low and commanding. Easy. Don't rush her. The sound of that voice pulled her further into consciousness. She turned her head slightly, wincing as pain bit through her shoulder. When her vision cleared, she saw a large man sitting beside her bed, golden hair tousled, sharp jaw dusted with stubble, eyes the color of a summer sky. Power radiated from him like heat. You're awake, he said softly. Thank the moon. She blinked, throat dry. Where am I? In the palace, he answered. The northern citadel. You're safe. Palace, she rasped. No, that's a mistake. I shouldn't be here. She tried to sit up, but her body screamed in protest. Don't, he warned gently, pushing her shoulder down with surprising tenderness. You nearly died. You need rest. The cub, she whispered suddenly, panic flooding her. The white cub. He's alive, the man said quickly, and then, softer, he's my son. Lyria stared at him, uncomprehending. Your son? The man nodded. You saved him. He was taken by rogues when our traveling party was ambushed. I thought I'd lost him until I found you in that clearing. You killed 3 rogues alone and gave my son your life to heal him. Lyria shook her head weakly. I didn't know. I just couldn't leave him there. A smile tugged at the corner of his mouth, though his eyes remained grave. Then I owe you more than I can ever repay. He hesitated, then added quietly, my name is Rylan. I am the Alpha King of the Northern Territories. Her heart stopped. The Alpha King, ruler of the largest werewolf kingdom, feared and respected across all packs. And she, a packless healer with no name, had stumbled into his life like a beggar. You don't owe me anything, she murmured. I didn't do it for reward. Rylan's gaze softened. You misunderstand. He leaned closer, his scent warm and clean, like pine and rain. When I found you, I felt the bond. Bond, she repeated, confused. He met her eyes. You're my mate, Lyria. The words hung between them like a struck bell. Lyria stared at him, stunned. Then she gave a short, shaky laugh that turned into a cough. That's ridiculous. I'm no one. I don't even have a pack. The moon doesn't make mistakes, Rylan said quietly. You may not feel it yet, but it's there, the pull between us. I felt it the moment I touched you. She looked away, heart racing. The idea was impossible, absurd, yet part of her did feel something, a strange warmth in her chest that wasn't pain. I think you've made a mistake, she whispered. I don't make mistakes, he said simply. But you don't have to accept it. Not yet. You've been through enough. Rest now. Before she could argue, a small shape stirred beside her. Lyria turned her head and froze. The cub, no, a tiny boy with pale blonde hair and bright blue eyes, sat curled up beside her bed, holding her hand. Dada, the boy mumbled sleepily, she's awake. Rylan's expression softened instantly. So she is, little one. The boy blinked up at her and smiled, small and shy. Hi. I'm Kale. Lyria felt her throat tighten. Hello, Kale. How are you feeling? Good, he said proudly. You fixed me. Papa said you gave me your life. That means you're my hero. Rylan looked mortified. Kale, I didn't mean. But Lyria laughed weakly. It's all right. He's just honest. She reached out, brushing Kale's hair from his forehead. You're safe now. That's all that matters. The boy's eyes shone. Can you stay? I don't want you to go. Lyria hesitated, glancing at Rylan. The king's face was unreadable. We'll see, she said gently. Kale grinned, satisfied, and climbed into her bed, curling up beside her. Within moments, he was asleep again, tiny fingers still gripping her hand. Rylan smiled faintly. He hasn't slept this peacefully since his mother died. The words hit Lyria like a blade. I'm sorry, she whispered. He nodded once. Don't be. You've already healed more than you know. 4 days after, Lyria remained confined to the palace infirmary. Her body healed slowly under the care of Rylan's best healers, but it was the king himself who visited most often. He came in the evenings, when the hallways were quiet, and sat by her bed while Kale slept. He told her about the kingdom, about the wars he'd fought, about the peace he was trying to hold. In return, she told him about her wandering years, about the packs that turned her away because of her strange white hair, about the nights she slept under trees and healed strangers for scraps of food. I stopped hoping for kindness, she admitted one night. Until that cub cried. You've given me back my son, Rylan said. That's more than kindness. That's grace. The bond between them deepened, though neither spoke of it again. Sometimes she caught him watching her with an expression she couldn't name, something between awe and longing. And sometimes, when he smiled at her, the strange warmth in her chest pulsed stronger, like a heartbeat answering his. But Lyria pushed it down. She was a healer, not a queen. Whatever the moon had planned, it couldn't possibly be this. Weeks passed. Lyria recovered enough to walk, though her shoulder still ached. The palace was enormous, all marble floors and tall windows that caught the morning light. Everywhere she went, people stared. Some bowed respectfully, others whispered behind their hands. "That's her," she heard one servant murmur. "The ghost healer who saved the prince." "The Alpha's mate," another whispered, disbelief thick in her tone. "The moon must be testing us." Lyria kept her head high, but the words stung. She didn't want to be anyone's legend or scandal. She wanted peace. Her peace, however, was short-lived. Late one afternoon, while she was walking in the palace gardens with Kale, the air shimmered suddenly and the child flinched as a bright blue flame erupted in the courtyard. From the flame stepped 3 robed figures, the sigil of the moon temple glowing on their chests. "By order of the high priestess," the tallest one declared, "we demand custody of the woman known as Lyria of the pale hair." Guards rushed forward, but the priests raised their hands, crackling with divine light. "Do not interfere. This woman wields the forbidden power of a soul weaver. Her existence is a violation of the moon's decree." Lyria went cold. "I don't even know what that means." The lead priest sneered. "Ignorance is no defense. You stole life from another being to heal the prince. That power is forbidden because it belongs only to the goddess." Before she could respond, a furious growl echoed across the courtyard. Rylan appeared, eyes blazing gold, aura flaring like a storm. "You dare accuse my mate in my home," he thundered. The priests bowed stiffly. "With respect, Your Majesty, the laws of the goddess stand above all. The woman must be taken for purification." "Purification," Rylan repeated softly, deadly. "You mean execution. If that is the goddess's will." Rylan's lips curved in a smile that wasn't a smile. "Then you can tell your goddess that if she wants her purification, she can come for it herself." The priests paled. "Your Majesty, this is blasphemy." "Blasphemy is threatening my mate," he snapped. "Get out of my sight before I decide to test whether divine fire burns hotter than wolf claws." The priests vanished in a burst of smoke, the scent of ozone lingering behind. Lyria turned to him, shaken. "You shouldn't have done that." "I'll do worse if they come again," he said, still trembling with rage. She stepped closer, voice low. "You can't risk your kingdom for me." Rylan met her gaze, voice rough. "You risked your life for my son. Do you think I could do any less for you?" Her breath caught. "Why? Because of this so-called bond?" "Because of you," he said simply. "Because when I look at you, I feel alive again." Silence fell. Kale tugged at her sleeve, wide-eyed. "Papa's scary when he yells," he whispered. Lyria smiled faintly. "Only when he's protecting people he loves." Rylan's gaze softened. "He loves you too, you know," he said quietly. She froze. "What?" "Kale," he said, a hint of a smile tugging at his lips. "He loves you. He won't sleep unless you're nearby. You've become his light." The child nodded vigorously, hugging her waist. "Don't go away, Mama Light." Her heart melted. She knelt and hugged him back. "I won't," she promised, though she wasn't sure how she could keep it. That night, she couldn't sleep. Moonlight poured through her window, silver and cold. She felt something inside her stirring, the same deep pulse she had felt when she saved Kale. Without meaning to, she reached inward, testing it. The energy rose eagerly, humming beneath her skin. Her fingers glowed faintly, lighting the room. A sudden knock startled her. The door opened, and Rylan stepped in, barefoot and unguarded. "You're awake," he said quietly. "I couldn't sleep," she admitted. "There's something inside me. It won't rest." He came closer, eyes fixed on her glowing hands. "That's the soul weaver's gift. You move life energy itself. It's why the priests fear you, because you hold the power to heal beyond their control." She frowned. "If it's so dangerous, why don't you fear me?" Rylan smiled faintly. "Because I've already seen what you do with power. You save lives." She shook her head. "You don't understand. It hurts. Every time I use it, it feels like it's tearing me apart." "Then let me help carry it," he said. Her eyes met his. You can't carry this. Try me, he murmured, stepping closer until his hand brushed hers. The bond pulsed between them, warm, electric, alive. Lyria gasped, the magic surging, light flooding the room. Rylan. I feel it too, he whispered. Every time you're near, it's like the world steadies. The glow slowly faded, leaving them standing close enough to share a breath. Why are you doing this? She whispered. You don't even know who I really am. He looked at her with unwavering certainty. I know enough. You're the woman who faced death for my son. You're the one who woke my heart after years of silence. That's who you are to me. Her throat tightened. You're the Alpha King. You could have anyone. I don't want anyone, he said softly. I want the ghost who became my light. For a moment, neither spoke. Outside, the wind sighed through the trees, carrying the scent of rain. Finally, Lyria whispered, You said I'm your mate. If that's true, then promise me something. Anything. Don't lose yourself for me. Don't start a war with gods and priests because of what I am. He smiled sadly. I already lost everything once. I won't lose you too. Before she could reply, a soft voice interrupted from the doorway. Papa. Mama light. Kale stood there, clutching a stuffed wolf. Can I sleep here? The thunder's loud. Rylan chuckled softly. Of course, little one. He lifted Kale into the bed beside Lyria. The boy curled up instantly, pressing against her side. Within moments, he was asleep again, tiny hand resting on hers. Rylan watched them both for a long time, the fierce alpha replaced by something gentler. He trusts you completely, he murmured. Lyria brushed Kale's hair back. He's easy to love. So are you, Rylan said quietly. She didn't answer, afraid her voice would break. As the storm rumbled outside, Lyria looked down at the sleeping child, then at the man standing beside her. For the first time in years, she felt something she hadn't dared to hope for, belonging. But deep in her chest, the power still hummed, restless. She knew peace wouldn't last forever. Because gifts like hers never came without a price. Morning light spilled through the tall windows of the royal palace, turning the marble floors to gold. Servants hurried through the halls, carrying trays of breakfast and stacks of scrolls. Everywhere they went, whispers followed in their wake. The king's mate is a ghost, someone murmured near the kitchens. They say she killed 3 rogues with 1 knife, another whispered. No, said a third, lowering her voice. They say she drained their life away. Lyria heard it all. She didn't mean to, but the palace had a way of echoing secrets. Each rumor felt like a small stone tossed against her ribs. She had saved a life, yet all they saw was a curse. She had been living in the palace for 2 weeks now, recovering slowly. Her strength was returning, but she avoided the grand halls where nobles gathered. She preferred the gardens, quiet corners where Kale could play without the weight of stairs. That morning, she sat beneath an ancient willow tree, watching Kale chase butterflies. His laughter rang through the air, bright and pure. For the first time in her life, she felt a flicker of peace. But peace, she'd learned, was fragile. A rustle of leaves made her glance up. Rylan was approaching, wearing simple black training clothes, his golden hair tied back. He looked less like a king and more like a warrior. You're up early, he said, smiling faintly. Couldn't sleep, Lyria admitted. Your son has too much energy. He chuckled. He gets it from his mother. Lyria looked down. He told me she died when he was born. Rylan's expression softened. She did. Ilara was gentle, kind, but the goddess took her from us too soon. Kale never knew her, and I thought he would never laugh again. Until you. Lyria shook her head quickly. Don't say that. I'm not her replacement. I know, he said. You're not meant to be. You're you. And that's enough. Before she could answer, a voice called from the far end of the garden. Your Majesty. It was Captain Joran, running toward them. His armor glinted in the sun. We caught someone near the outer wall, claims to be a messenger from the temple. Rylan's smile faded. Bring him here. 2 guards dragged a thin man forward, dressed in travel-worn robes. His eyes darted nervously between Rylan and Lyria. The king's tone was sharp. Speak. I come from the Moon Temple, the man stammered. The high priestess sends a warning. She says the woman with white hair carries a curse that will doom the north. She demands her surrender before the next full moon, or the temple will declare war. Lyria's heart dropped. War? Over me? Ryland's eyes hardened. You can tell your priestess that if she threatens my family again, I will bring her temple to ruin. The messenger paled. Why, your majesty? Leave, Ryland growled. The man fled, stumbling over his own robes as he ran. When he was gone, Ryland turned to Lyria, voice low but fierce. They will not touch you. I swear it. But they're the temple, she whispered. You can't fight them. They control the faith of half the kingdoms. Then I'll control the other half, he said. They're afraid of what they don't understand. And they fear you because you remind them that the goddess's power isn't theirs alone. Lyria clenched her fists. They're right to fear me. When I fought those rogues, I killed one by stealing his life. I felt it, the power, it burned like fire. That's not healing. That's destruction. You acted to protect a child, Ryland said firmly. That's not evil. That's courage. She looked away, unable to meet his eyes. If I lose control again, someone innocent could die. He stepped closer, close enough that she could feel his warmth. Then let me help you learn control. You're not alone anymore. His words wrapped around her like a promise, and for a moment, she let herself believe it. But far above them, hidden in the clouds, 3 hawks circled, silver-eyed, sent by the temple to watch. Their shrill cries echoed through the air, carrying the message of defiance back to the goddess's priests. That night, Lyria dreamed again. She stood in a field of white flowers beneath a sky filled with moons, one bright and full, the others dim and broken. From the mist stepped a tall woman cloaked in silver, her eyes glowing like starlight. Do you know who I am? The woman asked. Lyria bowed instinctively. The moon goddess. The goddess smiled sadly. The gift you hold was never meant for mortal hands. Soul weavers walk the edge between life and death. Use it carelessly, and it will consume you. I didn't ask for it, Lyria said bitterly. I only wanted to save a child. And you did, the goddess said. But balance demands payment. Every life saved tips the scale. Every act of mercy takes something from you. What happens if I keep using it? The goddess's eyes darkened. You will become neither living nor dead, forever bound between worlds. Lyria's chest tightened. Then take it back. I don't want it. I cannot, the goddess whispered. It was awakened by love, and love cannot be undone. The world around Lyria began to fade. Wait, please, what am I supposed to do? The goddess's voice echoed as everything went white. Learn the balance, child. Or the balance will learn you. Lyria woke with a gasp, drenched in sweat. Her heart hammered in her chest. The moonlight through her window seemed brighter than before, painting silver lines across her skin. For a moment, her reflection in the glass didn't look entirely human, her eyes glowed faintly, like liquid light. She pressed her palms to her chest, whispering, "What are you turning me into?" Unbeknownst to her, Ryland stood outside the door, having heard her scream. He almost entered, but then he stopped, sensing something in the air, ancient and wild. Whatever she had become, she was no ordinary wolf. She was something older. Something divine. The next morning, Ryland gathered his council in the throne hall. Lyria stood beside him, though every pair of eyes in the room was fixed on her. She is dangerous, said Elder Vaughan, one of the oldest advisors. The temple calls her cursed. Her power may bring ruin. She saved my heir, Ryland said coldly. That alone earns her my protection. Vaughan hesitated. With respect, my king, protecting her may bring the goddess's wrath upon us. Ryland's voice was like steel. If the goddess wishes to strike me down, she knows where to find me. The council fell silent. No one dared argue further. After the meeting, Lyria confronted him in private. You can't keep defying everyone for me, she said. Your council fears me. Your priests hate me. You'll lose your crown if you keep protecting me. Ryland crossed his arms. Then I'll build a new kingdom where fear doesn't rule. She sighed, half exasperated, half touched. You can't fix everything, Rylan. Maybe not, he said softly, but I can try to fix you. Her lips twitched into a smile. I'm not broken. He smiled back. No. But you're still healing. For a while, she did try to heal in every sense. Rylan brought her ancient scrolls, books written in forgotten tongues, and invited scholars who knew fragments of old magic. Together, they began to study her gift, searching for ways to control it. One afternoon, as they worked in the palace library, Rylan watched her carefully. Show me, he said suddenly. Show me how your magic works. She hesitated. It's not safe. I trust you, he said simply. Lyria sighed, then held out her hand. A tiny flame of white light appeared in her palm, flickering gently. Life energy, she explained. Every living thing has it. I can see it, feel it. When I heal, I guide it back into balance. And when you fight, he asked quietly. Her expression darkened. Then I take it away. The light in her palm dimmed, turning gray. The temperature in the room dropped. Even the air seemed to hold its breath. Then, just as suddenly, she closed her hand, and the warmth returned. That, she said, is why it's forbidden. Rylan stepped closer, his gaze unwavering. You control it with compassion. That's your strength. The temple fears you because you remind them that power doesn't have to be cruel. She looked up at him. You make it sound simple. It is, he said, smiling faintly. You just have to believe in yourself the way I do. Before she could answer, a voice shouted from the hall, Your Majesty. Emergency. The door burst open, and a guard stumbled in, pale and shaking. Attack, on the eastern border. Rogues. They bear the temple's insignia. Rylan's jaw clenched. They've joined forces. He turned to Lyria. Stay here with Kale. No, she said, standing. If this is about me, I should face it. He glared at her. You've faced enough. I won't risk you again. Then you'll fight half-blind, she countered. I can sense life and death, remember? I can find the wounded faster than any healer. They stared at each other, the air between them tight with defiance and fear. Finally, he sighed. Fine. But you don't leave my side. The battlefield lay just beyond the palace walls, where the forest met the open plains. Smoke rose into the sky. The scent of blood and burning wood filled the air. Rylan shifted into his wolf form, massive, white as snow, eyes blazing blue. Lyria followed on foot, her heart pounding, the pulse of life and death thundering in her ears. She felt them before she saw them, dozens of lives flickering like candles in the dark. Some weak, some fading. She ran to the first fallen soldier and pressed her hands to his chest. Light flared from her palms, sealing wounds, knitting bone. The man gasped, alive again. The soldiers stared in awe. She's a goddess, one whispered. But the strain was immense. Each life she saved drained her own strength. Her vision blurred, and blood dripped from her nose. Still, she kept going. Then she felt a surge of dark power from the tree line. A robed figure stepped out, the high priestess herself, eyes burning silver. So this is the cursed girl, the priestess hissed. You should have died when you used forbidden magic. Rylan shifted back to human form, fury radiating off him. You sent assassins into my land. You betrayed your goddess. I serve her will, the priestess shouted. The soul weaver cannot be allowed to live. She raised her staff, light gathering at the tip. Lyria barely had time to react before the blast struck her square in the chest. Pain exploded through her body, sending her crashing to the ground. Rylan roared, shifting again, leaping at the priestess. They collided, claw and light clashing in a storm of energy. Around them, the battle raged, wolves against zealots, blood against fire. Lyria struggled to her feet, clutching her chest. The priestess's power had burned her from the inside, but something deeper stirred within her, a force older and stronger than pain. Balance, the goddess's voice whispered in her mind. Take from darkness. Give to light. Lyria raised her hands. White fire burst from her palms, spreading across the battlefield like a wave. It didn't burn, it healed. The wounded rose, their injuries vanishing. The dead, those barely gone, breathed again. Even Rylan froze, stunned. The priestess screamed, blinded by the radiance. This is impossible. It's balance, Lyria said, her voice echoing like thunder. Not destruction. Not curse. Life shared. The light consumed the priestess, leaving only ashes. The remaining zealots fled in terror. When the brightness faded, Lyria collapsed to her knees. Rylan caught her before she hit the ground. Her skin glowed faintly, veins pulsing with light. "You're safe," he whispered urgently. "Stay with me." She looked up at him weakly, smiling. "I didn't destroy this time. I gave." Then her eyes rolled back, and she went limp in his arms. Rylan held her close, heart pounding. Around them, his soldiers knelt, awed by the miracle they had witnessed. The war had ended in a single breath. But as Rylan looked down at the unconscious woman glowing faintly in his embrace, a terrible thought struck him. If every gift demanded balance, what had she lost this time? He pressed his forehead to hers and whispered, "Whatever the cost, I'll pay it with you." Above them, the moon broke through the clouds, shining brighter than it had in centuries, its light reflecting in Lyria's still form, as if blessing her or claiming her. Lyria awoke to the soft sound of crackling fire. Her body felt weightless, her limbs wrapped in warmth. When she opened her eyes, she wasn't in the infirmary or her room. She was in a cave, the walls smooth and glimmering faintly like crystal. The air smelled of earth and rain. She tried to sit up, but Rylan's hand pressed gently against her shoulder. "Easy," he said, his voice low. "You're safe." He sat beside her, his shirt torn, his skin streaked with ashen blood. But his eyes, those bright blue eyes, were steady and alive. "We won," he said softly. "The temple's army fled. The priestess is gone." Lyria's throat tightened. "And the others?" "Alive," he said. "Because of you. You healed an entire battlefield." She looked down at her hands. They still glowed faintly beneath the skin. "It didn't feel like healing. It felt like burning. Like I was on fire inside." Rylan touched her cheek gently. "You took in too much. You channeled the life of every wounded soul through yourself. You nearly tore yourself apart." She swallowed. "But it worked." He smiled faintly. "It worked." A quiet silence settled between them. Beyond the cave's entrance, the moon shone over the shattered plain. Then Rylan spoke again, his tone softer. "There's something you should see." He reached into a satchel beside him and pulled out a small book. Its leather cover was worn and cracked. "We found this among the priestess's belongings," he said. "It mentions you." Lyria frowned, taking the book. Her fingers trembled as she opened it. Inside were pages of symbols, half scripture and half history. And there, scrawled in the margins, a name she hadn't heard since she was a child, Ilara of the Silver Bloodline. "That's my mother's name," she whispered. Rylan's expression grew grave. "Read further." Her eyes scanned the next lines, and her breath caught. The Silver Bloodline, bearers of the Soul Weaver's gift, were once guardians of the Alpha Thrones, chosen by the moon herself to keep balance between the living and the divine. Betrayed by the High Priestess, they were hunted to extinction. The last descendant disappeared 20 years ago, a child hidden by the forest. Lyria's voice broke. "That child was me." Rylan nodded. "The temple didn't attack because they feared your power. They attacked because they failed to finish what they started." She stared at the fire, memories flooding back, her mother's voice singing lullabies, the smell of herbs, the night flames devoured their home. She'd thought it was rogues. But it wasn't rogues at all. It was the temple. "They killed my family," she said, her voice trembling. "All of them. And now they're trying to finish it." Rylan reached for her hand, steady and firm. "Then let them come. They'll find the last Silver Bloodline guarded by an army." Lyria shook her head. "It's not your fight." He looked at her sharply. "It became my fight the moment you saved my son. And my life. And my kingdom. You're not alone anymore." Her eyes filled with tears. "I've been alone for so long, I don't know how to stop being it." Rylan's hand tightened on hers. "Then start now." For a long moment, she just stared at him. Then she whispered, "Why do you keep risking everything for me?" His lips curved into a small, sad smile. Because the moment I saw you, my wolf said you were home. Her heart stuttered. Home, she repeated softly, as if testing the word. Rylan nodded. You belong here, Lyria. Not as a healer. Not as a weapon. But as my equal. Before she could answer, a faint rustle came from the entrance. A small, golden-furred wolf cub peeked in. It was Kale in his shifted form, his blue eyes wide with worry. Mama light, he whimpered. Lyria's heart melted. She opened her arms, and he ran to her, curling up in her lap. Hey, sweetheart, she whispered, stroking his fur. I'm right here. Kale looked up at her, eyes brimming. I dreamed you disappeared. I'm not going anywhere, she promised, hugging him close. Rylan smiled softly at them both. We'll head back to the palace at dawn. The kingdom needs to see that their queen still stands. Queen? Lyria blinked. His smile deepened. The people already call you that. The Luna who healed the dead. Lyria shook her head, overwhelmed. I'm no queen. Rylan stood, looking down at her with the calm certainty of a man who never doubted his instincts. You're wrong, he said. You're everything a queen should be: fierce, selfless, and unstoppable. Outside, the moonlight grew brighter, and for the first time, Lyria didn't feel like a ghost in someone else's story. She felt like she belonged in it. They returned to the palace the next morning to a sight neither expected. The courtyard was filled with wolves bowing their heads, not just royal guards, but wild wolves from the deep forest, their white coats shining in the dawn light. They had followed her from the battlefield. What do they want? She whispered. Rylan looked at them in awe. They're paying respect, he said. The wild ones answer only to the ancient powers. To them, you're a sacred being. The wolves howled as she passed, the sound rising like a song. The air shimmered faintly, and for the first time, Lyria felt no fear in their gaze, only reverence. She turned to Rylan, her voice shaking. What am I becoming? He met her eyes, unflinching. Everything the world tried to destroy. Peace didn't last. 2 weeks after their return, the palace was alive with tension. Messengers came from the southern packs, bringing rumors. The temple was gathering allies again, raising armies, spreading lies. They claimed the Alpha King was bewitched by a witch queen. Rylan tried to keep calm, but the council pressed him daily. You must distance yourself from her, Elder Vaughn said during one meeting. The people whisper. They say the soul weaver controls your mind. Rylan's voice dropped to a growl. Enough. My bond is my choice. Speak against her again, and you speak against your king. The elder bowed, trembling. But fear had already taken root. That night, Lyria stood on the palace balcony, staring at the moon. The cool wind tangled her hair as she whispered, Why can't they see I never wanted this? Behind her, Rylan's voice was gentle. Because people fear what they can't understand. And because power, no matter how kind, is still power. She turned to face him. What if they're right? What if I am dangerous? He stepped closer. Then I'll keep you safe from yourself, too. She wanted to believe him. But deep down, something was changing. Every day, her power grew stronger. Sometimes objects moved when she dreamed. Sometimes, when she healed, she glimpsed flashes of memories, faces she didn't know, voices whispering ancient words. And then came the night everything fell apart. It began with a scream. Lyria bolted upright in bed. The scream echoed again, high and terrified, Kale's voice. She ran through the hall barefoot, her magic already flaring beneath her skin. When she burst into his chamber, 2 hooded assassins were standing over the boy. One raised a dagger. Without thinking, Lyria threw out her hand. Light exploded from her palm, slamming the assassins into the wall. Their weapons clattered to the floor. One tried to rise, but his body withered in seconds, skin shriveling, eyes hollowing into darkness. The other turned to flee, but Rylan appeared at the door, his wolf half-shifted, teeth bared. He tore the man down before he could reach the corridor. When the room fell silent, Kale whimpered, trembling under the blankets. Rylan pulled him close. It's all right, little one. You're safe. Lyria stood frozen, staring at her hands. They glowed with deadly white fire. I didn't mean to, she whispered. I just wanted to stop them. Rylan reached for her, but she stepped back. Don't touch me. He stopped, his heart breaking at the terror in her eyes. Lyria. Her breath hitched. They were alive a moment ago. And then, she looked at the body, horrified. I drained him. I felt it. It was like drowning in their fear. Rylan took a step forward, voice steady but soft. You protected our son. You did what you had to do. But I killed him, she whispered. Lyria, Rylan said, gripping her shoulders gently, look at me. You saved Kale. I'd rather 1,000 enemies fall than lose either of you. She met his gaze, tears streaming down her face. You don't understand. Every time I use my power, I lose more of myself. The goddess said balance demands payment. What happens when there's nothing left to give? He cupped her face. Then I'll give mine. Her voice broke. Don't say that. I mean it. She shook her head. You can't fight death for me forever. But he only said, watch me. The temple's spies reported the failed assassination within days, and war followed swiftly. Armies gathered at the borders. The priests declared Rylan's kingdom cursed, demanding the Soul Weaver's surrender. Lyria begged him to let her go. If I leave, they'll stop. Rylan refused. If you go, they'll kill you. And then they'll come for Kale. The council chamber turned into a storm of voices. Some urged surrender, others called for war. Rylan slammed his hand on the table. Enough. We fight. Outside, thunder rolled though the sky was clear. The air shimmered faintly around Lyria. Her magic responded to her fear, to his rage. Rylan, she whispered, please. But he only looked at her with fierce determination. I've already lost one family to fate. I won't lose this one to fear. That night, as soldiers prepared for battle, Lyria stood alone in the courtyard. Her gift pulsed inside her like a heartbeat. The moon was red and swollen, hanging heavy above. She remembered the goddess's warning, learn the balance, or the balance will learn you. When she closed her eyes, she saw both futures, the kingdom burning if she stayed, and Rylan broken if she left. There was no winning. Only choosing which part of her heart to destroy. Then she heard Kale's small voice behind her. Mama Light. She turned, forcing a smile. Hey, little one. He rubbed his eyes. Papa says we have to fight. Are you scared? Yes, she said honestly. He climbed into her arms and pressed his head against her chest. It's okay to be scared. You always say courage is when you do things even when you're scared. She smiled through tears. You remember that? He nodded seriously. I'm brave because of you. Lyria hugged him tightly. And I'll be brave because of you. When Rylan found them moments later, moonlight framed them like a painting, the king, the woman who was both healer and weapon, and the child who bound them together. Rylan extended his hand. Come with me. Whatever happens, we face it together. She looked at him, heart aching. Together. He took her hand, and as they walked into the night, the first drums of war began to echo across the plains. The battle that followed would be remembered for generations. The temple's armies marched under banners of silver flame, while the northern wolves met them with howls that shook the stars. In the chaos, Lyria stood at the heart of the field, her magic a storm of light and shadow. Every life she saved fed her strength, every death stole a piece of her soul. At the edge of the world, Rylan fought beside her, their bond burning brighter than the moon above. But deep inside, Lyria felt something breaking, a thin thread fraying under the weight of power too great for one heart to bear. And when the temple's final weapon rose, a monstrous creature born from blood and prayer, she knew the balance was about to demand its price. The battlefield was a sea of blood and light. Fire burned across the horizon, mixing with the screams of men and wolves alike. The temple's final creation, an abomination of silver bones and holy flame, towered over the armies, its roar shaking the very air. Lyria stood in the center of the chaos, her white hair whipping in the wind, her palms glowing. Every time she healed a fallen soldier, another dozen collapsed. Her strength was running out, her breath ragged, her heart thundering painfully in her chest. Rylan fought not far from her, a blur of claws and gold against the creature's silver fire. Every strike he landed burned his flesh, but he didn't stop. His only thought was to keep the monster away from her. "Lyria," he shouted above the noise. "Stay back." She ignored him. Her power was pulsing, wild and uncontrollable. The abomination turned its glowing eyes toward her, sensing the source of its opposite, life itself. It lunged. She barely had time to react before Ryland slammed into her, knocking her aside. The monster's claw came down where she had been standing, carving a deep scar into the earth. Ryland roared in pain as the fire seared his back. "Ryland," she screamed, crawling toward him. He was bleeding badly, skin burned black. He grabbed her wrist, his grip weak but unyielding. "You can't fight that thing alone." "Then fight with me," she whispered, her voice shaking. "Please." He nodded once. "Together." The monster roared again, and they faced it side by side. Lyria raised her hands, calling on the last of her power. Ryland shifted into his wolf form, a massive creature of white and gold. He charged forward, buying her the seconds she needed. She reached deep inside, past exhaustion, past fear, to the core of what she was. Her bloodline. Her gift. Her curse. The goddess's voice echoed in her mind, "Balance demands payment." "I know," Lyria whispered. "Take it from me." Light erupted from her body, blinding and pure. Every living creature on the battlefield stopped to stare. The abomination screamed as the light struck it, burning through its divine fire. Its bones cracked, its silver melted, and it collapsed into dust. The roar faded. The field went silent. Ryland shifted back, stumbling toward her. "Lyria." She stood swaying, eyes unfocused, her skin glowing from within. "It's done," she murmured. "But I can't." Her knees buckled. Ryland caught her before she fell, cradling her against his chest. "No. No, stay with me." She smiled faintly. "The balance wanted a life." "It won't take yours," he growled. "Not while I breathe." Her hand trembled against his cheek. "Then you'll have to stop breathing." He shook his head, desperate. "Don't talk like that. I can feel your heart. It's strong." "It's fading," she said softly. "But I'm not afraid. I kept my promise. I protected you both." Ryland's vision blurred with tears. "Don't you dare say goodbye. You're not allowed." She smiled again, weaker this time. "Tell Kale, he was my light." And then her body went limp. The glow faded. Her head dropped against his shoulder. "No," his voice cracked. "No, no, no." The world seemed to stop. The wind died, the fires dimmed. Even the wolves lowered their heads, their howls turning into a mournful chorus. Ryland pressed his forehead to hers, his voice breaking. "You promised me forever. You can't leave me now." But she was gone. He stayed like that for a long time, holding her, rocking her gently as if she were sleeping. Then he lifted his head, eyes hardening. "If the goddess wants her balance," he growled, "then she can have mine." He rose to his feet, carrying Lyria's body toward the mountains. Soldiers tried to follow, but his aura stopped them cold, a power so fierce it shook the earth. He climbed until he reached the ancient cliffs, where legend said the first alphas had been born from the moon's tears. At the top, a crystal pool shimmered under the starlight. He knelt beside it, laying Lyria down gently. "You gave everything," he whispered. "Now I'll give what's left of me." He drew his dagger, slicing his palm. Blood dripped into the pool, turning it crimson. "Goddess," he shouted into the night. "You took her once. You won't keep her." The sky darkened. Clouds swirled. A voice filled the air, ancient, feminine, sorrowful. "Alpha King. You challenge the balance." "I don't care," he roared. "Take my life. Give her hers. One life cannot replace another so bound. Then take mine and hers together." The wind howled, lightning flashing across the sky. The goddess's voice trembled with pity. "You love her beyond death." "I do," he whispered. "Then you must choose." Ryland looked at the still woman before him. Her pale hair floated like moonlight on the water, her lips parted slightly as if she were about to speak. "There's no choice," he said. "There's only her." He leaned down and kissed her forehead, letting his tears fall into the pool. For every breath you gave, take mine. But before he could release more blood, a small voice cried behind him, Papa, stop. He turned. Cale stood at the edge of the cliff, barefoot and trembling, his eyes wide with fear. Please, Papa, don't leave me too. Ryland's resolve wavered. Cale, how did you? I followed you, the boy sobbed. She's sleeping, but you can't go too. I'll be alone. Ryland's heart shattered. He looked at his son, then at Lyria. If I don't do this, she won't wake. Cale shook his head fiercely. Then take mine. You said I'm strong, Papa. You said I got it from her. The goddess's voice whispered again, softer now. Love for love. Life for life. The balance may bend, but never break. A column of light descended over the pool. Cale ran forward before Ryland could stop him, placing his small hand on Lyria's chest. Mama Light, he whispered. Please wake up. I still need you. Ryland's body shook. Cale, no. But the light engulfed them all. For a moment, he saw his son's face glowing, peaceful, fearless. Then warmth spread through his chest, a familiar heartbeat not his own. Lyria gasped. Her eyes flew open, grey and bright as dawn. She sat up, coughing, light spilling from her mouth like smoke. Rylan. He caught her in his arms, shaking. You're alive. She blinked, dazed. What happened? He pulled her close, tears streaming freely. You died. And then you didn't. Cale smiled weakly, swaying on his feet. See? I told you she'd wake up. Lyria turned toward him just as he collapsed. She caught him, cradling him against her chest. His breathing was shallow but steady. Ryland's voice trembled. He gave you part of his life force. The goddess's voice echoed one last time, balance restored. Then the light faded, and the sky cleared. The war was over. Ryland looked at his family, the woman reborn and the boy sleeping in her arms. You both nearly killed me, he said hoarsely. Lyria managed a tired smile. Then we're even. He laughed through tears, pulling them both close. The wind carried away the scent of blood, leaving only the quiet hum of life. Above them, the moon glowed brighter than ever, as if smiling. The palace gates opened to a dawn unlike any other. The war was ended. The temple was silent. And at the head of the returning army rode Rylan, his son, and the woman who had become a legend. As they entered, crowds fell to their knees. Whispers spread through the air like wildfire. The Life Queen. The healer who conquered death. The moon's chosen. Lyria kept her eyes down, uneasy with the worship. She hadn't fought for glory. She'd fought to protect the two people she loved most. But when she looked at Cale, walking proudly beside his father, she felt peace. Inside the throne hall, Ryland summoned the council. The elders bowed deeply, their faces pale. Your Majesty, Elder Vaughan began carefully, the temple has sent no word. Their armies have scattered. Ryland nodded. They will not rise again. The moon has judged her own. His gaze softened as it fell on Lyria. And this kingdom has a new Luna. Gasps filled the hall. Lyria froze. Rylan. He took her hand gently but firmly. You've been my mate since the moment fate bound us. You've given me peace, love, and a future. It's time the world recognized you as its queen. She shook her head. I'm not meant to rule. I don't belong on a throne. He smiled faintly. You don't sit on a throne to rule. You sit there to protect. And that's all you've ever done. Cale tugged her sleeve. You'd be the best queen, Mama Light. Her heart melted. She looked around the room, the people who had feared her now watching with awe and gratitude. Finally, she nodded. Then I'll do it. For you. For all of you. Ryland's smile was radiant. Then we'll do it together. The coronation took place under the full moon. Wolves from every pack gathered, filling the palace courtyard. Even the wild ones emerged from the forest, forming a circle around the dais. Lyria wore a gown of silver silk that shimmered like starlight. Her hair was braided with white flowers, her skin glowing faintly with the magic that still lived within her. As Rylan placed the crown upon her head, the crowd bowed as one. Rise, she said, her voice clear and strong. No ruler stands above the people who give them strength. The wolves howled, a chorus that shook the heavens. At that moment, something incredible happened. The wild wolves bowed lower, and from their midst stepped a great silver she-wolf, larger than any Lyria had ever seen. Her eyes glowed like moons. The crowd fell silent. The she-wolf spoke, not aloud, but into their minds. The soul weaver walks the mortal path once more. The worlds of spirit and flesh are joined through her. Protect her, for she carries my blessing. Then she turned her gaze to Lyria and Rylan both. Rule well, my children. And with that, the goddess vanished. Lyria's knees nearly gave out, but Rylan caught her, steadying her with a smile. Looks like even the divine approves. She laughed softly. I think she just told me to behave. Good luck with that, he murmured, kissing her forehead. Months passed. The kingdom flourished under their rule. Lyria transformed the palace infirmary into a school for healers, teaching them not just to mend wounds but to ease fear and grief. Her magic had changed, softer now, balanced. She no longer drained herself. Instead, she guided life energy as gently as breathing. Rylan watched her from the doorway one afternoon, smiling as she helped a young apprentice channel light into a wounded bird. When she looked up and saw him, she grinned. You're supposed to be in council. I'd rather be here, he said. Watching my queen teach gods how to be gentle. She rolled her eyes but blushed. You're terrible at flattery. And yet, he said, stepping closer, it still works. Their laughter echoed through the hall, light and easy, like sunlight through leaves. Kale burst in moments later, waving a wooden sword. Papa. Mama. I defeated 3 guards. Rylan scooped him up. My brave warrior. Lyria kissed Kale's forehead. Remember, strength isn't just fighting. It's knowing when not to. He grinned. That's what you always say. That's because it's true. That evening, as the sun set, Lyria stood on the palace balcony. The horizon glowed red and gold. Rylan came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. Do you ever think about what comes next? She asked softly. Tomorrow, he asked. No, she said, gazing at the moon. After all this. After us. He pressed a kiss to her temple. Then our story will become legend. A story to remind them that love is stronger than fate. She smiled, leaning into him. And maybe they'll believe that even ghosts can find home. Below them, Kale's laughter echoed through the gardens. The wolves howled again, not in mourning but in joy. Lyria closed her eyes, feeling the pulse of the world, life, love, balance, flow through her veins. For the first time since her birth, she wasn't afraid of the power inside her. It wasn't a curse. It was her promise to protect, to heal, to live. And as the moonlight wrapped around her and the Alpha King she loved, the legend of the Soul Weaver truly began. The morning light drifted through the palace windows like threads of gold. Lyria stood in the gardens, barefoot in the soft grass, watching the dew sparkle on the flowers. It had been months since the war ended, yet sometimes she still woke expecting to smell smoke or hear screams. Then she would open her eyes and see peace, the kind she had never known before. The kingdom was healing, slowly but surely. The burned villages were being rebuilt. The temple's former followers were learning to pray without fear. Wolves from distant packs came to the northern territories not as conquerors, but as allies. And at the center of it all was Lyria, the lunar queen who had become legend. Her name spread beyond the borders of the north, carried in songs and whispered in stories. But inside the palace, she was just Lyria, the woman who taught the healers to be gentle, who scolded Kale when he tracked mud through the halls, who argued with her husband when he skipped breakfast for council meetings. She was finally living, not just surviving. That morning, she was tending to a bed of wild lilies when she felt a familiar presence behind her. You're awake early, Rylan said, his voice warm and teasing. I could say the same, she replied without turning. A king shouldn't sneak around his own palace. He laughed softly, stepping beside her. I wanted to see you before council begins. It's easier to face politics after you remind me the world still has beauty. She rolled her eyes, though her smile gave her away. You're impossible. And you love it, he said, brushing a stray strand of hair from her cheek. Lyria blushed, But before she could answer, a familiar voice shouted from the doorway. "Mama, Papa, look what I made." Kale ran toward them, holding a small wreath of daisies. He'd grown taller, his curls wilder, his grin brighter. Rylan knelt to meet him. "That's beautiful, little wolf." "It's for Mama," Kale said proudly, placing the wreath on Lyria's head. "Now you look like a flower queen." Lyria smiled, hugging him. "You always know how to make me smile." Kale nodded seriously. "Because you're my favorite person." Rylan pretended to look offended. "Not me. You're my second favorite," Kale declared, then whispered loudly, "But don't tell anyone." Lyria laughed so hard she had to wipe away tears. "He's definitely your son." Rylan grinned. "Stubborn, honest, and too smart for his own good." "Yes, I see it." Later that afternoon, the palace courtyard filled with healers from every pack. Lyria had created a new council not of warriors or nobles, but of caregivers, scholars, and peacekeepers. The world had enough kings who ruled with claws, it needed more hands that healed. She stood before them, dressed simply, a white sash across her chest. "When I first learned to heal," she began, "I thought it meant fixing what was broken. But healing isn't just about mending wounds. It's about listening, forgiving, and reminding others they're worth saving." The crowd was silent, hanging on her every word. "We are not the goddess," she continued. "We don't choose who lives or dies. We simply stand in the space between and say, you are not alone. That's all healing ever is." When she finished, the courtyard erupted in applause. Tears glistened in more than a few eyes. Even the guards, hardened soldiers who'd seen war, bowed their heads in respect. Rylan watched from the balcony, pride swelling in his chest. He had seen her bleed, fight, die, and rise again. Now, she was everything the world had once feared and everything it needed. When the crowd dispersed, he met her halfway across the courtyard, pulling her into his arms. "You have no idea how proud I am of you." She smiled against his chest. "I think I do." He kissed her hair. "You turned battlefields into classrooms. And you turned wolves into diplomats," she teased. He laughed quietly. "We make a good pair, don't we?" "The best," she whispered. That night, after the healers had gone and the palace grew quiet, Lyria wandered the halls alone. The moon hung high, pouring silver light through the windows. She paused before a great mirror near the throne room. For years, she'd hated her reflection, her pale hair, her strange eyes, the ghostly skin that had made others whisper. But now, when she looked, she saw something different. Not a ghost, but a survivor. Not an omen, but a promise. She touched her reflection gently. "I know who you are now," she whispered. "And I forgive you for everything you had to do to get here." From the shadows, Rylan watched her, silent. He didn't interrupt. He only smiled, his heart full, knowing she'd finally found the peace he'd wanted for her since the day he found her bleeding in the woods. A few days later, they received unexpected visitors, envoys from the southern tribes, who once followed the temple. The delegation entered the great hall nervously, led by a young priestess with silver eyes. "Your Majesties," the priestess said, bowing low. "We come seeking peace. The temple's rule is broken, and our people are lost. We ask your guidance to rebuild not through fear, but through balance." Rylan looked at Lyria. "What do you think, Luna?" Lyria stepped forward. "Balance can't be demanded," she said gently. "It has to be shared. Tell your people they're welcome here. We'll rebuild together." The priestess's eyes filled with tears. "You would trust us, after everything?" Lyria smiled softly. "Forgiveness is a kind of healing too." When the delegation left, Rylan turned to her. "You realize what you just did?" She nodded. "Ended a 1,000-year war." He shook his head, half in awe, half disbelief. "You're terrifying sometimes. And you love it," she said, echoing his words from before. "I really do," he murmured, kissing her forehead. Later that week, they sat together in the palace gardens as dusk painted the sky pink and gold. Kale chased fireflies while Rylan rested his head on Lyria's shoulder. "Do you ever miss the road?" he asked quietly. "The wandering?" "Sometimes," she admitted. "There was freedom in it." But I've learned something new. Home isn't a place, it's the people who make you stay. Rylan smiled. Then you're stuck with me. She turned to face him. That's not a bad thing. He leaned closer, his voice a whisper. You sure? She smiled. I'm sure. They kissed softly as the fireflies drifted around them, glowing like stars. For the first time, there was no fear, no urgency, just quiet certainty. The ghosts of her past were finally gone. The temple's shadow had faded. She was Lyria, the soul weaver, the queen, the woman who had finally found her home. And as the moon rose above them, she whispered into the night, "Thank you." The wind carried her words away, but somewhere, she swore she heard a gentle voice answer back, "You've earned it." Years passed like seasons turning. The northern kingdom flourished, its borders strong and its people united. The story of the ghost healer who became queen spread across lands and generations. Children played games pretending to be the brave soul weaver, while bards sang songs of the night the moon bowed to a mortal woman. Inside the palace, life moved on with quiet joy. Kale grew tall and strong, his golden hair shining like his father's, his eyes bright like his mother's. Though he trained to be a warrior, he preferred reading scrolls about ancient magic and the art of healing. "I want to be both," he told them one day. "A king who fights when he must, but heals when he can." Lyria smiled proudly. "Then you'll be better than both of us." Rylan laughed. "Impossible." "Not for him," Lyria said softly, and she was right. On the night of Kale's 16th birthday, the palace was filled with celebration. Music echoed through the halls, and torches lined the courtyard. Wolves danced under the moon, shifting and leaping in joy. Lyria watched from the balcony, her hand resting on Rylan's arm. "He's growing too fast," she whispered. Rylan chuckled. "That's what children do." "He's not a child anymore," she said with a sigh. "He's becoming what we fought for." Rylan kissed her temple. "Then we did something right." When the dancing ended, Kale came to them, still laughing. "Dance with me, Mama," he said, holding out his hand. She smiled. "I thought you'd ask one of the pretty girls." "I asked the prettiest one first," he teased. Rylan pretended to groan. "He gets that charm from you." Mother and son danced beneath the stars, moving with easy grace. Lyria's laughter rang through the air, free and unburdened. When the song ended, Kale hugged her tightly. "Thank you for saving me that day," he said quietly. She blinked, surprised. "You still remember?" "I'll never forget," he said. "You gave me more than life. You gave me a family." Her heart swelled with emotion. "And you gave me a reason to stay." Years later, when Rylan's hair had silvered and Kale wore the crown as the new Alpha King, the legend of the Soul Weaver was written into history. Lyria no longer needed titles or power. She spent her days teaching young healers and her nights walking the gardens where she had first learned peace. Sometimes she would find herself looking at the moon, her thoughts drifting to the past, the girl who had wandered alone, the cub she had saved, the man who had refused to let her die. And she would smile. One evening, Kale found her there, sitting on the stone bench surrounded by flowers. "Mother," he said gently, "they're asking for one of your stories again." She laughed softly. "Which one?" "The beginning," he said. "When you found me." She nodded, her voice calm and warm. "I remember that night. The forest was too quiet. I should have known danger was waiting. But I heard you cry, and I couldn't walk away." "Why didn't you?" he asked. She smiled faintly. "Because sometimes the heart chooses before the mind can stop it. Because the moment I saw you, I knew you were mine to protect." Kale knelt beside her, taking her hand. "You've always said the greatest strength is sacrifice." She looked at him lovingly. "Yes. But sacrifice means nothing without love. Remember that when you rule." He squeezed her hand. "I will." She leaned back, looking at the moon. "Good. Then I can rest." He frowned softly. "Rest?" She smiled at him. "Don't worry, my heart. I'll never really leave you. Every time the wind moves through the lilies, every time the moon shines over the forest, I'll be there." Kale swallowed hard, tears brimming in his eyes. "I love you, Mama." "And I love you," she whispered. That night, when the moon reached its highest point, A gentle breeze swept through the gardens. The flowers glowed faintly, their petals shimmering with white light. The healers who kept watch swore they saw a woman's shape in the glow, pale-haired, smiling, surrounded by silver wolves. When morning came, the palace bells tolled softly. Lyria had passed peacefully in her sleep, her hand still resting on an open book, her face serene. Rylan joined her not long after, his last words spoken with a smile, "She's waiting." Cale stood before the gathered kingdom, his voice steady though his heart ached. "My parents taught me that strength isn't power, it's compassion. That love can heal what war destroys. They gave their lives to prove it. Let us honor them not with sorrow, but with kindness." And so it was. Generations later, the royal line carried the Soul Weaver's blood. Some of her descendants awakened the gift again, healing nations and binding the packs together. And in every telling of the story, it always began the same way. A girl with white hair heard a wolf cub cry. She gave her life to save him and found a home instead. If this story touched your heart, don't just scroll away, hit that like button, subscribe, and join our pack of dreamers and storytellers. Every week, I'll bring you more tales of love, power, and destiny. Let's keep the legend alive together.